Greetings, friends, and welcome to my guide on the Savage Arm of Alexander. This turn has high DPS checks and heal checks, requires raid coordination and very precise tank positioning. This encounter also has a hard enrage timer of 12 minutes and 30 seconds. I will go into each of the mechanics as we make our way through the phases. I'm sure there are many other strategies that work just as well, but these are the ones we use to best suit our playstyle and composition. Alright, let's get started. The first thing you'll notice is the water around the arena is electrified. If you walk, stumble, fall, or get pushed into this, it will do damage and put a paralysis debuff on you, so please, stay out of the water. Before you pull, you'll want to go over positions. Positioning here is very important in this encounter. You'll want to have preset positions when dealing with multiple mechanics throughout the phases to make things simple. Here is our positioning. You'll want the melee DPS on each rear flank and the off tank at either 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock. This will allow DPS to hit all positionals as well as smoother tank swapping in the last phase. Other than that, it doesn't matter too much where people go, but regardless of whatever placement your group chooses to do, these positions will be very important to surviving in the last phase. In phase 1, there isn't anything too terribly difficult. There is a lot of raid damage at times, and positioning is key. Here is what Living Liquid does in phase 1. Fluid Swing. Frontal cleave attack that does moderate damage, can be bursty when paired with an auto attack. In the last phase, this ability will also add a stack of blunt resist down to everyone it hits. You should never face the boss towards the group unless you have to reposition him and after a cleave. It is important to note that the blunt resist down does not factor in Living Liquid's magical attacks, so the only increased damage will come from autos and other fluid swings. Prodean Wave. This casted ability creates conal AoEs on the ground. These must be avoided. If not, they will do moderate damage, knocking you back and push you into the electric water, which will result in death. So be sure to always dodge these. After the conal AoEs disappear, he will target 6 random people with a follow-up Prodean Wave, dealing moderate damage. The follow-up attack will not push back. Remember your positions before the pull? Here is where they become important. To do this mechanic correctly, you simply move to the left or right slightly when the conal AoEs come out. After they disappear, move back to your position, GG too easy. If people are stacked, they will likely get hit by 2 waves, resulting in both players dying, so it is extremely important to move as a group and trust that your raid members will move back in time. Remember, this game has stupid server delays, so just because your group appears to be moving late doesn't mean they actually are. Splash. This is an instant cast magical attack dealing high raid damage over multiple hits. If people aren't topped off before this attack, there is a high chance they will die. So it is very important to prepare for this ability by having everyone at high HP. Sluice. This casted ability places AoEs under random people and shortly after will do additional moderate AoE damage. It is very important to not be stacked up for this ability and to dodge the ground AoE. Your positions here are very important. Sluice should be baited out by ranged and healers to give more room for dodging. There are a lot of different ways to do this, but make sure everyone in the group always has a safe spot to dodge to. As you can see, there are many ways to accomplish this. Make sure that everyone has a set point to dodge to so you aren't tripping over yourselves and stacking. Baiting these out isn't so important in the first phase, but in the last phase, it is key to surviving. Upon reaching 1 minute into the fight, Living Liquid will transition into phase 2. Phase 2. This phase has 2 different cycles, or rotations. At the start of phase 2, Living Liquid will become untargetable and disappear. He will then reform as a hand. For this phase, you'll want to be stacked directly in the middle of the arena to make handling mechanics as easy as possible. In the first part of this phase, Living Liquid will do these abilities. Fluid Strike. Frontal Cleave, dealing massive damage, must be split with the party. Adds a stack of blunt resist down when 2 hands are up. You can also have a Dark Knight or Paladin solo the first cleave with Living Dead or Hallowed Ground to add more DPS. Wash Away. Raid damaging ability doing low damage and causing knockback in a random direction. Digititis. Casted ability debuffing one tank with vulnerability up, one DPS with damage down, and one healer with healing down. These debuffs can be transferred between players until the cast is finished. For Digititis, you want to trade debuffs in a way that it will not affect your party members' abilities. We have the tank affected go to the left side on marker C. The melee without the damage down will pick it up off the tank so they can DPS behind the boss and hit positionals. The affected DPS with damage down and the healer affected with healing down go to A in trade. This will give the healing down to a DPS and the DPS down to a healer. This will effectively swap all three debuffs while still maintaining all of your group's capabilities. Be very careful not to intercept someone going to the designated location. You have more time than it seems to get there, so while learning this mechanic, try to stay out of the center if you don't have a debuff until all affected players transfer accordingly. After Digititis, he will do 2 more fluid strikes, then another wash away. After this wash away, the hand will split into 2 hands and the other one will need to be picked up by the off tank. This can be a tricky part for positioning the hands, and there are many ways of doing it. How we do it is whatever direction the tanks are knocked, we tank them around 90-degree angles based on the center of the room from each other. This makes it easy when dealing with upcoming mechanics. You can also use abilities that prevent knockback or plunge toward the hands to make positioning a bit easier. The slap from each hand will now add a stack of blunt resist down, so damage will get more intense as the phase progresses. Shortly after the split, one hand will turn bright blue and either be an open palm high five or a closed fist. High five. Get close, stack both hands on top of each other. Closed fist. Pull the hands far apart and take them to the opposite sides of the arena. If not done correctly, the hands will deal massive damage and wipe the raid. After this mechanic, you'll want to pull the hands close together if you got fisted, and tank them in a V formation. The hands will cast Digititis once again, so handle that in a similar way you did before. DPS and healer swap, and the melee DPS swap with the tank. During this, Living Liquid will also start to cast equal concentration. One hand channels around 4% HP into the other hand. After about 23 seconds, both hands will cast Hand of Pain, raid damage based on current HP between the 2 hands. Able to complete this mechanic, you must first DPS the higher HP hand to get both hands within 4% or lower of each other. This part is an extremely tight DPS check, and there are a couple of things to remember. AoEs can work against you because when you DPS the lower hand, it makes you have to do more damage to the higher hand. The hand's percentage doesn't matter too much as long as they are within 4% or lower of each other, you will complete this mechanic. If they are 4.1% or higher, the damage will be extremely high and almost always resulting in a wipe. Once this is done, one hand will glow bright blue again, and you will either have to stack the hands for high five or separate for fist. Keep in mind that while the two hands are up, the tanks are accumulating stacks of blunt resist down and will be taking more damage as the phase progresses, making healing more intensive. After 5 stacks of blunt resist down, the hands will go to the middle, and this will transition you into phase 3. Upon entering this phase, living liquid will become invulnerable and transform into a tornado in the center of the room. There are several new things to learn in this phase. During this phase, 2 different types of adds will spawn. These adds will spawn from the tornado and try to make their way to the electric water. Piston lubricant. These are bigger adds and will cast mucilage, which increases their movement speed. Mucilage needs to be stunned or silenced during the cast. Gear lubricant. These are smaller adds, and they have no special abilities. Simply kill them. If any add succeeds in making it to the water, they will explode, dealing damage and putting a nasty electric debuff that does damage over time on the whole raid. It is extremely important that no adds make it to the water. Tethers. 2 tethers will spawn from the tornado and attach themselves to 2 random players. After about 6 seconds, the tethers will explode, dealing massive damage in a small AoE. These need to be picked up by both tanks. Use cooldowns to mitigate the damage. Picking up tethers can be a pain sometimes when they are far away, and passing the tether is even more annoying. The best strat we have found is to have whoever gets the tether move back to the edge of the arena in a straight line. This makes picking up the tether safer if grabbed at the last second. There are a lot of different ways to optimize grabbing the tethers depending on the chemistry of your group. It might take a few deaths to perfect it. Ferrofluid. Players will become tethered together with a plus or minus sign above their head. If both players have the same sign, get close together. If players have opposite polarities, get far apart. If not done correctly, once the polarities have resolved, you will get a debuff called Atrophy that reduces all stats by 15%, so be sure to do this correctly. It is also important to note that it is very easy to be pushed into the electric water when stacking for same symbols, so try to position yourself to where you will be knocked back to a safe place. The knockback and angle originates from the other person. This phase requires a lot of raid coordination. Call out stuns for mucilage and pay attention to tethers. Also, DPS need to be split on the big and small adds, ensuring none make it to the water. On the last wave, there will be 4 piston adds. Coordinate your stuns and silences appropriately. Once this wave is killed, living liquid will reappear, and this will transition you into phase 4. Phase 4 has 2 cycles, or rotations. After completing the second cycle, living liquid will repeat the first. In this final phase, Fluid Strike will still apply a stacking blunt resist down debuff on the tank. For the first rotation, we trade at 4 stacks, then at 3. At the beginning of phase 4, he will become targetable again and start his first rotation by casting Cascade. Raid-wide high damaging ability, around 12k. Should be mitigated with raid buffs and or debuffs. After this, 3 pools of water will spawn on the arena. Tank positioning is very important in this phase because of the upcoming mechanics, and knowing what pool does what ability is key. We tank him with his back to the narrow path in between the pools. This makes dealing with mechanics later in this phase easier. The pools will spawn in random locations, so be prepared to move or turn the boss slightly. He will still cast all of his abilities in previous phases, as well as keeping his blunt resist down on fluid strikes, adding an additional damage down on digititis, living limb, and when he casts Ferrofluid, it will be 4 tethers, giving each raid member a polarity. For Ferrofluid, we position ourselves that we are not pushed or pulled into the electric water or the water puddles. We try to use the wide pathways to accomplish this, but it isn't always necessary. For Sluice and Prodean Wave, we bait out the sluice by stacking in rows, then use our clock positions for the Prodean Wave that follows. This part can be difficult while learning, and getting the positioning down is extremely important. The raid will have to be healed in between Sluice and Prodean Waves. If not, the damage taken by Sluice and the follow-up wave will likely kill anyone not topped off. For Sluice and Digititis, we bait out the Sluice in rows again. Then we have the healers grab both damage down debuffs, while the other two free DPS go to the affected tank and grab the debuff off him. We keep the off tank at 1 o'clock in relation to the boss, so this makes grabbing it very easy and consistent. Living Limb. A green marker will appear above a healer's head. Shortly after, a hand will spawn and grab that player. During the grab, it will stun anything around it for a brief time. After spawning, the hand will move the shortest distance toward the water in a straight line. The hand can be affected by slows and stuns. If the hand goes through a water puddle, it will gain regen, making it extremely difficult to kill. Which way the boss is facing isn't as important as before, as long as everyone knows where the wide paths are. We have the affected healer go to one side of the boss, aim down a wide pathway, while the rest of the group is behind or on the other side. This will force it to go down a wide pathway while not going through any puddles. We rotate stuns and DPS as much as possible. We also use Castra LB3 here, but it is not mandatory. After this, Living Liquid will cast Digititis and Cascade again. This will start his second rotation. We now make sure to keep his back to the narrow pathway once again, but later we will adjust a bit slightly, so be prepared to reposition or turn the boss. In this rotation, the pools will now spawn tornadoes and he will introduce Throttle and Embolus. This cycle is a bit shorter than the first, so we tank swap at 3 stacks, then at 2. Throttle affects 2 random party members. If not cleansed, the affected players will die instantly. Embolus. A slow-moving orb will spawn from a tornado and head in the direction of Living Liquid's last known location before the spawn. If Embolus touches the boss or any player, it will explode and wipe the raid. For this cycle, positioning is extremely important. After the first tank swap in this cycle, we face the boss towards the wide path in between the Embolus pool and the Prodean Wave pool. We pull him so he is in between both pools. This is to keep Embolus from going through the center and keeping its path out of our way as best we can. After the first Embolus, we pull him to the edge of the arena to dodge. When the second Embolus comes out, we pull him back to the center to avoid it. This keeps our positioning consistent so that in the next rotation it is really easy to adjust Living Liquid so his back faces the narrow path and requires as little movement as possible. The second cycle can be pretty intense because of so many mechanics stacked on top of each other, so try to focus on what you need to do and not worry about other people as much. After all this Tether, Prodean Wave, and blue ball bullshit, you have now seen the entire fight, and he will repeat his rotation from the beginning of Phase 4. Well guys, that's all I got. But one last tip before I go. Don't leave before all the loot is distributed. Trust me on this one. I hope this guide was helpful and will lead to some sweet first clears. Good luck guys.